One thing is for certain, since the first generation Model 3 went on sale in Ireland in 2019, I feel the world thinks differently, well, some of the world, about Elon Musk. He's now quite a divisive character, but that hasn't stopped Tesla from becoming one of the biggest car brands in the world. So maybe you just forget about the noise. Now, speaking of noise, there's quite a bit of noise about this. It's the new Model 3, which on the inside hasn't changed a huge amount. By the inside, I mean the motor and the battery and the range. But it has gotten slightly better. For example, the new design of these headlights, the bumper delivers just under 0.22. It's 0.219 of a drag coefficient, which is better than the last model. So in theory, this car should be a little bit more efficient, and we will get into that on the drive today here on Nobby on Cars. Storage and practicality is still a big feature of this car. There's a frunk under here giving you plenty of space, but you don't need to put your charging cables in here because they've got room in the boot also. So the nose is quite, it's not massively different, but I think what they've tried to do is make this car look like a squished Model S, and in some angles they've achieved it, other angles maybe not so much. We still have all the safety monitoring cameras in here, cameras on the B pillars. You have display now on the inside of the car for blind spot. Alloy wheels, they're not massively different from what we've seen before, but the ride quality is a little bit better in this car. And on a little bit of a greasy road, you can get the back out, you can have a bit of fun. It's still a very capable car when it comes to handling, despite the added weight of the battery. Glass roof still slopes right the way into the boot. We have an integrated boot spoiler, if that's the best way to describe it. Biggest change, the tail lights look quite a bit different, and the spacing on the lettering on Tesla. We still have a huge chunk of black plastic down below, but I think overall it is a better looking offering on the rear than the last version. Where the improvements get very noticeable indeed is the back. First of all, obvious thing, you have this screen for the rear passengers now. They can control their climate, their arcade games, which can be played on the move. There's over-the-air updates available for it. And if you forget your headphones, it will pipe the sound from that just into the back of the car. The front passengers can listen to something else, and you can sync some headphones up with it. So it's got a lot of stuff covered when it comes to the entertainment factor, and it's a wow factor when you jump into the back of the car. You just can't help notice it. The materials used in this new version of the Model 3 are better. The build quality is better, say Tesla. They've also just slightly repositioned how this rear bench gives you a bit of support and extra support. Now, if the driver is tall, your foot and leg space can be a little bit compromised. Armrest is here, but it's part of the overall seat. But it's a very spacious armrest, and you could fit a device on this if you were trying to work on the move. Glass roof gives you this much space, and again, I'm not over 6 foot tall. The sort of T-bar across the midsection has a couple of lights in it. Here you can store jackets and shirts and things like that when you've nobody in the back. It's kind of a two-person rear, I think. I mean, you'll fit a third. Flat floor helps it, but I think a 2-and-2 is the most comfortable way to get around in the Model 3. One thing Tesla say they've massively improved on is the clunk in those doors. They say they're on a par with BMW and their likes. And yeah, it does feel solid. Also, the inside of the door bins are really thickly carpeted now to stop things rattling around. The materials used here are good. You have an ambient lighting strip the whole way around that goes right across the windscreen and over to the passenger side as well. Let's talk about the most obvious thing in here then that has changed. The steering wheel. It's still round, but it just has Tesla lettering now instead of the badge logo on the center, and the stalks, as I'm sure you know, are gone. And there are times when I haven't driven the car for a little while and I kind of have to get used to the indicator again, but by and large, I don't hate it, I don't love it. That's the best way I can describe it. So You now push this to turn right and you get a camera coming on here. Flash your headlights, you just tap the headlight button, but it does bring up the shortcut option to turn on the actual lights. Wiper over here, voice controllers over here, and you can access the camera. Same buttons you still use for the adjustment on the wheel. Autopilot is activated by pushing in this button, and you can speed up and slow down the car just like that. So I actually think the autopilot is possibly better with the steering wheel controls. Where you hold your devices is now deeper, so in theory less chance of something sliding off, although I didn't really find that an issue before in the car. A lot of storage spaces, so under the armrests you've got this area here which can be covered up just like the drinks holders. It does feel a little bit better in terms of materials used, I'll definitely say that. They also say there's an awful lot of improvement in terms of noise over pillars, noise from inside the car, reduced tyre noise, just the whole ambience should be better. Again, this is a new thing and it's just sensed my hands there. If you want to change gear or direction of the car, you swipe up to drive, back to reverse. Like the Model S, it can, that's P for park up the top, like the Model S, it can predict what gear you're going to select depending on how the car is parked, the location. If you really hate that, there are buttons up here that you can activate the drive modes, the gear modes up here. There's also a little camera, what looks like there was lens, but it's dash cam footage on the outside and monitoring and Sentry mode. That is still something that was in the last car. Very similar setup with the screen, what you can do with it. So that hasn't really changed much. I think it's a little bit thinner. Similar size, you can't put it into portrait mode or anything like that. Seats now are air cooled as well, and they're really good for hot days. Maybe it's from the Californian sun that this has been upgraded. You've still got dog mode and camp mode, things like that, but the air cooled, exceptionally good. Really am impressed with that. 65 watts for the USB-C charging points throughout the car. I do find the wireless charging plate is also very, very fast. And the Tesla cards, you don't put it here anymore, you now put it there, but you can also just set up the digital key with your phone and then you don't need to worry about that card. So definitely a bit better on the inside. If the steering wheel was still the same, you wouldn't really tell the difference. It's only when you get into the finer details, like that kind of awful looking wood trim is gone and these recycled materials look really good, and the seats are comfortable. I've always liked Tesla seats, I've always found them particularly comfortable. So overall, a bit of a lift on the inside. Driving the car, and it probably would do in many ways with the same motor and the same battery, it feels quite similar. It's possibly a little bit better when it comes to handling and comfort, and it absorbs bumps and lumps very well. Part of those bloody EU regs, it also now has a speed sign chime, so if you break the speed limit, it will keep beeping at you, even if you're 1 kilometer over, which can get quite tiresome. But you just literally tap the road sign and it's off. You're not going through any menus. You still have voice commands that open all kinds of things, including your frunk. They'll search for things in the menu for you, so it's pretty easy to use. The regen just works away in the background for you, so you don't have to do an awful lot with that. And it's still an extremely quick and well-handling car as far as I'm concerned. It probably is a bit quieter from the outside world as well. So this is, you could say, the Model 3 that they always should have made, but then you have to look at how early the Model 3, relatively speaking, went on sale. Floor it and you get that typical electric burst of power. Really pushing on, you start to lose the confidence in terms of grip from the rear wheel drive car. Obviously the performance all-wheel drive version of it will give you more grip, but that potentially then means you're going to be using even more power because it just has so much of it. But that really heavy weighted feeling you get from some EVs, particularly over bad roads or motorways, it's not as much of a problem. And yeah, it's not a sports car. You miss the engine noise, of course you do. But it's a very capable car and quite a fun car to sling around corners. That was the case in the last model also, but I definitely think it's the case here. You can firm up the steering or you can leave things in chill mode, same for acceleration. So if you're not constantly looking to snap the neck of yourself or your fellow passengers, you can just dial that down. But again, it really depends on what you do with your foot and the throttle, and you certainly don't have to bury it every single time. You can progressively drive this car and genuinely have a bit of fun, and when you lift off the throttle you get a little bit of braking, so you're actually less on and off pedals. They say you do get used to most things, and you know, generally in life that has been true, but yeah, the indicator, particularly if you're going more than straight through a roundabout, let's say, and the steering wheel is upside down and you're mentally trying to go, okay, which one is it now for the, because you just don't have that natural reaction of a stalk going up and down. As I said earlier on in the video, I don't hate it, but I'm not like, oh, this was a brilliant idea. The gear selector thing, not as much of a problem. I don't really mind that. Taking it, it's not even really taking it easy, just driving normally today. Outside temperature is 12 degrees, getting 15 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And to me that feels better than the previous version of it. Now, when I was having a little fun earlier on, it was about 17. That's still very, very good. The other thing about the indicator actually is sometimes if you haven't done a huge deviation from the direction you were going, it doesn't always automatically click off, and then you stab it and you're like, oh. Well, good straight road here now. That's floored. It's a little over 6 seconds to 60. And yeah, you're not wanting for power. I can, you know, having driven the performance version in the last one, which is just ridiculously fast, I would be more than happy to recommend that you get the single motor, rear wheel drive, standard range version of this car. And I think most people, particularly in what you can use, you know, on a daily basis on, you know, normal public roads, it is more than enough. Can I quantify the improvements? I mean, is it 20% better than the past version? I mean, if you prefer the looks of it, then you'll probably say it is. From the whole driving experience, it's maybe 10%. I wouldn't be watching this if you have the last gen Model 3 going, oh God, I've got to get one. But if you're, you know, if you're happy enough with your car and you want to stay within the brand, then you're definitely going to like it. It's the things I've mentioned that might annoy you compared to what you've been used to. So I'd nearly go as far as saying it's business as usual, just a little bit different. Is the Model 3 still a compelling argument then in the new revised version? Well, absolutely. If you don't have a trade-in, you can buy one of these right now for a little over €38,000. You still have the issue of getting a trade price if you have a trade-in, so you're better off selling your own car privately. But it's an awful lot of car and an awful lot of range and an awful lot of tech and gadgets and supercharger network access, and the fact that you can charge it at home during, you know, limited enough window sizes, but for very little money at all for a couple of 100 kilometers range. And I just think, yeah, it's frustrating that the prices are sometimes fluctuating, disrupting the market, but ultimately it is better for the consumer long run because the prices are coming down. I get that it's frustrating if you've bought something and suddenly your car has depreciated. That is to be said for any new vehicle. And this is the point that just seems to go over people's heads when they want to comment and just spew waffle about EVs. At this price, it's very hard to ignore. There's a performance version coming. We got details about that a few short weeks ago. There's obviously the long range version as well. I just don't think you need it in Ireland. It's not that big a country. Perhaps if you do your summer holidays every year, it might be something that you think is worth it, but I just don't know. Still great to drive. It's a bit better inside now. You just got to maybe put your hands over your eyes and forget about a certain Elon Musk. And I really don't think you'll find an awful lot wrong with this car if you do that. Let me know what you think of it in the comments down below. And thank you very much for watching.